All right, what's up, y'all? Wanted to talk to you about this thing that's been going on a long time, where everyone loves to say, I'm not judging, or don't judge me. And this is probably one of the biggest problems. I remember years ago on Facebook, this girl said something funny. She said people like to quote and say, only God can judge me. And I was like, that's because they listen to too much Tupac, you know, because you got to think about that statement because there's two types of judgment. You can go to the Bible if you want to. Jeremiah 10:24, if I remember correctly. You can correct me in the comments if you need to. No big deal. I'm not worried about it. But if you go to Jeremiah 10:24, it says, "O Lord, correct me in your judgment, but not in thine anger," which means not in your anger, or else you'll bring me to nothing. See, correction is a judgment. And if you're not open to correction, then condemnation is the other judgment. So which one would you prefer? I know I would rather be corrected than condemned. That's just me. So when you hear people say that, it doesn't make any sense. It's never made any sense. Now, if they're saying I'm not condemning you, and that's what they mean by I'm not judging you or don't judge me, then, and they're saying, oh, I'm not condemning you or don't condemn me, then I get that. Of course. But correction is a judgment. That's the first judgment for every single person. If they don't accept correction, then it's going to be condemnation, you know. And the standard that a lot of people struggle with too is this faith without works is dead. But the standard was never perfect works, perfect obedience, because that's what works is implying is obedience. When you go to, I believe that's James, I can't remember if that's James like 2:14 or maybe 4:15 or something like that. I'd have to look into that. I can't remember it that well right now. But that's when he's going on about faith without works is dead, and he uses the example of Abraham, of Rahab, the Gentile prostitute or whatever. But the standard was never, like I was saying, perfect obedience. Like no one has that. If that's the standard, then ain't none of us going to heaven. Ain't gonna be no bosom of no Abraham, no nothing. Just nothing but condemnation because ain't nobody doing perfect obedience. And that's not suggesting willfully sinning and enabling sin, nothing like that. It's saying you're gonna make mistakes. That's why when you go to, I want to say it may be Proverbs. It's either 24:16 or 16:24. I forget numbers often. Sometimes I remember them well, but I believe it's Proverbs 16:24. I talked about it in another video too, or it might be 24:16. But when it talks about the righteous fall 7 times but are risen up on the last day, and but the wicked fall into mischief, something like that. So holiness is, obviously holiness is, be ye holy for I am holy is what he said, not me, but the Lord. So yeah, of course, holiness, what you strive for, of course, increasing in holiness. But I always say, and you can disagree, but I always say that when you go to seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added. I always say God's so righteous that his righteousness will produce holiness in you because you can't just put, like they say, put the cart before the horse, things like that, whatever other statements people make. But my webcam's not working. I got to use the laptop cam. I'm gonna have to probably buy that thing. I don't want to pay for it, but I'm gonna have to do it. But yeah, that's, I mean, like I said, I think God's so righteous that his righteousness produces holiness. That's why he told us to seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added because it's about his righteousness. And his righteousness is about correction, judgment, not, oh, oh, God, know my heart and all that stuff. Like, okay, well, it says the heart is what? Deceitful and desperately wicked. So you might want to really think about when you make these statements. You know, we really got to break free from some of these old cliche Groundhog Day type statements, or if you want a new movie reference, I'll say Happy Death Day type statements, like people just repeating the same stuff over and over. And it's like that's not getting us anywhere. Individually, collectively, it's not working. It's always been about judgment. Doesn't it say if you don't, how can you judge small matters? If you can't judge small matters, then how will you be able to judge greater matters or larger matters? Um, do you saints not know you'll judge angels? Talks about you judging the world. It's all about judgment because it's about correction. Now, if it reaches that point where we're talking like Revelation, and well, actually, let's go before Revelation, go Matthew chapter 24, where so, two men are walking in the field, one's taken, one's left. Two women grinding at the mill, one taken, one's left. People twist that up too. If it reaches that point, then we're talking about ain't gonna be no correction then. Like that's condemnation. People forget that. It says like in the days of Noah, if you read that Matthew chapter 24. In the days of Noah, folks was wiped out, except for them people on the ark. That's why if you go to Matthew chapter 25, it talks about the five wise virgins and the five foolish virgins. So people really got to think like it's about correction. Your time for correction is now. I mean, that it's always been time for correction. Just we weren't willing to accept it. You don't want to go through life being one of those people think nobody can tell you nothing, and or even some of the silly stuff you hear. I'm kind of just flowing now, but all of some of the silly stuff you hear about, oh, don't nobody correct my pastor or apostle, whatever names people saying, titles, but only God can correct them. It's like, no, actually, no one's above correction. God ain't the only one that can correct me, you, or anybody on this earth. He can use people to correct you no matter what your title is, because he's not a respecter of persons. So that's a false statement to say only God can correct this pastor, deacon, bishop, whatever. Like that's not true. Apostle, whatever, no matter. You don't say everything right. I don't say everything right. I've done 3 other videos and I didn't say everything right in there, you know. But I'm not, if someone points something out and I know they're right about it, then I'm gonna be like, oh, I did say that wrong. That's not a big deal. It's not about going around and, oh, so and so don't like the way I talk like this, or so and so don't. This person said this person said that. They didn't understand what I was saying. Well, maybe I didn't explain it well. That happens. You got to think. You know, maybe I didn't use the right metaphor, the right example. Whatever philosophical term. And some people got a problem with philosophical terminology, as if that Bible don't got a lot of metaphors, analogies, and I can't think. I can't think of all the other terms to just philosophical terms. But so nothing's wrong with philosophy. I mean, the Bible's full of philosophical speech. Whether something's taken metaphorically or literally, like sometimes it's both. You know, People just have to learn this stuff. It's not hard to understand. I know I kind of did a little ranting, kind of. But I was just flowing though. I wasn't really ranting. There's a lot of things to talk about, and I'm not trying to make the videos too long. But people got to get past this. We all got to get past this idea of no one can, only God could judge me. No one should judge me. Like it does say, if you judge yourself, no one can judge you. But we have to judge ourselves according to his righteousness, not our own. You know, it's always been about judgment. That's the only point I was making in this video, or trying to make. I went to some other things, but is that it's always been about judgment. It's just which one do you want? Do you want correction or do you want condemnation? Those are the only two options. So may the Lord continue to bless all of you and myself as well, and I'll catch y'all later.